Look at that. Bam. And you're
It
there.
works. First try. It's pretty
Uh,
exciting.
It is pretty exciting. First time on Instagram Live, Michael?
Yeah, I think it is. I've done a couple like of my own, like walking around the kitchen, but um, yeah, it's the first time I think. So
Welcome. Thanks for
it,
joining me. I
it's all
appreciate
you.
it.
And thanks for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
Cool. So I was just extolling that you were here to tell us your story.
Oh, what a story it is.
How you been, man? I'm trying to think. We haven't seen each other, well, at least in a year.
At least a year. I think the last time we saw, well, we met at Northwest Chocolate Festival up in Seattle, I think, a few years back, 5 years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I think. And it was actually the same time I met Carrie Beal. So that was a great weekend, and I wasn't exhibiting. I got to walk the floor, and that was the best way to enjoy that. That's pretty stressful at that place. We've exhibited before, and it's a lot.
Yeah, it does strike me as one of those events where, like, once you're in, you're in. Like, you're busy for
Oh my gosh,
2 days and then
yeah,
going back.
nonstop waves of people nonstop, and when you're the little guy amongst all these other huge, these really big chocolatiers, they're just kind of like, okay, great. We had a really good time though. I hope to go back again. So
Yeah, I don't. It's like Halloween weekend this year,
yeah,
though.
they changed it. So we won't be going this year. We've got some other things which I'll tell you about in a little bit that are coming. So we won't be joining this year, but maybe next year.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I get a pass from my 12-year-old. I think it might be like one of those last real Halloweens. I don't know if I'm allowed to not be around.
Yeah, right. It's like we gotta get the goods in before.
Right. And we have a new house. We're moving to a new house, right? So it has this perfect lawn for the Halloween adventure. And like I have
Oh,
a sneaking
awesome.
suspicion that I will
Uh,
be fully like hammering gravestones into my front yard and like
uh,
blowing up giant inflatable spiders that week. So
I used to do that. I used to scare the neighbor kids back in the day when I lived out in the suburbs. Here in the city, we don't have a lot of trick or treaters, but I love scaring people. It was really fun. So,
cool.
and I want to first of all give a little reference to my Bob Ross photographs painting behind us. This is our honorarium to him. It just went up recently, and it makes me laugh because it's happy little trees, and it makes me happy. So.
I was going to ask if that's the view from the window in Michael's Chocolates.
If
There in
only,
beautiful, beautiful,
if,
luxurious San
yeah.
Francisco.
If only. No, actually, it would be foggy enough to be San Francisco, but it's not. So it is summer here, and that's pretty much how foggy it is. So it's we expect it this time of year. So
Yeah, San Francisco. So obviously in this business, I'm in San Francisco a lot now. I'd never been to San Francisco in like 40 years, and now I feel like I'm there like every 6 weeks. But
yeah,
well, had been,
right.
you
Yeah,
know. So
yes, yeah.
and we go every January for Fancy Food Show, right? And so it's a little chilly in Buffalo in January, right? So
Right,
you know, I get off the plane and like I'm in short sleeves and almost shorts,
right. And everybody
right?
here's a parka, and
Well, they're in their puffy coats,
yeah,
right? They're all in their like
it's
bundled
cold.
up puffy coats. It's like
You
it's
got to see our
freezing.
summer wear. Our summer wear is even worse.
Well, it is colder there. That's my point. It's like
Yeah,
nice and it's January. It's beautiful.
right. A little wet, but yeah. I'm
It's
I'm the
always a
weird
little
guy
wet.
that wears shorts all year long. So
Well,
I
you
always hear
can.
from people. I'm like, I grew up in Southern California, and I've been up here for 20. I think I just had my 27-year anniversary in April, and so I'm used to the weather. I love the fog. Like if I get to where it's too hot, I'm like, I need my fog. I got to go back. It's
So that's a good segue. So you moved to San Francisco 27 years ago.
yes. I moved here to actually go to culinary school. Before that, I was a budding pastry chef in Southern California. By default, I somehow stammered my way into the restaurant business after working as a bank teller when I was a wee lad, and then started working in the restaurant business a little bit and got the bug and decided I was playing with the pastry chef a lot. I was, working actually in the restaurant, and there was a bakery associated with it, and so I started doing things with her. And then one day she quit, and I became the pastry chef. So,
Congratulations.
and it was terrifying. I was very young, and I was like, okay, I really like this, but I can't do this job. So I came up here to go to the California Culinary Academy, um, and went to culinary school and learned from some great chefs. And it's pretty intense. For those that have gone to culinary school, know it can be. I was young, so I was in a new city. I didn't know San Francisco at all. I grew up at the beach in Southern California. San Francisco couldn't be any more different than Redondo Beach. So, but it was great. And it was either this or CCA or CIA in Hyde Park. And the problem with Hyde Park was it snows there. And
it does.
I grew up at the beach. I didn't know snow, so I figured I could deal with some fog and the occasional earthquakes.
Well, now you have other options though in Northern California, right? I mean, now there's CIA at Grainstone. I mean, there would have been you could have gone to CIA.
I could have, yeah, eventually, yeah. So I moved up here and I went to culinary school, and I graduated and I cooked professionally for like a year, and then I couldn't afford to pay my student loans living in the city, so I decided to get out of the cooking part, move to the front of the house, and that's where I started studying wine, and kind of went on that path, and kind of found myself in Michelin starred restaurants. Became certified as a sommelier with the Guild of Sommeliers, and started playing with wine and studying wine and teaching wine, and it was great. I really, really enjoyed it. I did that for a really, really long time. And but at the same time, I was working with these amazing Michelin starred chefs, and pastry chefs, and so I was always around amazing food and people with like the highest standards, and it was great. It was really, really cool. So it kept that kind of excitement about food and such.
Question then, was food? Okay, so you were a bank teller and working, or then sort of ended up in a restaurant. I mean, and I asked sort of this question a lot, but was food in your DNA, and you hadn't figured it out yet, or was
well, I just didn't know that's something I wanted to do professionally. I mean, I go back to learning to cook when I was a kid. I mean, I cooked Thanksgiving dinner for the family starting when I was like 9 or 10. I would help out mom for a couple of years, and then it slowly became more and more me. I mean, I made my first attempt at a chocolate souffle at 7. So I was cooking always. It's one of those things. It just came natural, and it's always so much fun. And not always now, but it was always so much fun. Even the failures,
No, but I mean, I think that's the point, right? Like, I think when we're able to step away from like the professional aspect of whatever we do, and our worlds are really different. I mean, our day to day is different, but it's still, when we're able to like kind of get in the kitchen and get elbows deep in something that is for fun, even dinner. I mean, my wife still complains that I like treat every meal like I'm trying to serve it, to.
I do the same thing, and my husband's like, why does it always have to be a production? I'm like, because it's food and we have to respect it. And he's like, why do you have to make a perfect brunoise when you're making something? I'm like, because that's what I paid all this money for culinary school for.
I get all stressed out at Christmas and Thanksgiving about gravy, right? Like, A, it's got to be perfect.
Oh,
and
good.
B,
I thought I was the only one.
And B, it's got to hit the table at the exact time as everything else. And then there's this 15-minute panic where usually there's this brouhaha.
Yeah.
Whether it's with another family member or my spouse or whatever. The OS moment, dinner's got to be on the table in 7 minutes because I said it was going to be 6:30. Right.
Well, anyone who knows me well enough and has been to our Thanksgiving knows that 6:30 means maybe 7, maybe 7:15. But there's a lot of wine around, that's
right.
It comes
in. Right, but I'm cool. Right, me too. I mean, it becomes 7:15, but I know it's 7:15.
Oh, I know. Yes.
And we're cool, but it's now go time.
Don't the flop sweat happens and you're going.
Right. Well, why didn't you ask me for help earlier? Right. Because
I usually everyone out of my kitchen and let me work is the best way to do that. So.
Yeah, there's been a number of holidays in our house that don't start out real well as the dinner hits the table.
I'll do the crazy, yeah. So I cooked for a while, and then when I was working in restaurants, and I really, really enjoyed it. And knowing about your Ritz-Carlton background, I ended up at the Ritz here in San Francisco, the dining room at the Ritz-Carlton.
When were you there? Was Michelle the pastry chef, Willamette?
No. No, Alex Espiritu was.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I think you probably know Alex.
Yeah. I do. Actually, it's the second time he's come up in conversation this week.
Yeah, he actually left the Ritz to go to Valrhona at that time. So
And he may be making another change, but you didn't hear that from me.
I think I heard that somewhere else, but
Is
yes.
it public now that we put it on the internet?
I think he
It
went
is
on the
now.
so yeah, it is. Surprise. Congratulations, Alex, wherever it is.
Good luck, Alex, wherever you're going.
Yeah. So I got to work with him very briefly when he was cooking, and I was working with Ron Siegel, who was like the last American Iron Chef. And it was great. It was a really amazing culinary experience. Plus, working for the Ritz-Carlton, you know, you have a very interesting point of view as far as service, especially being in the front of the house. And I've actually worked with between there and another restaurant. If you ever watch Top Chef, at least 2 or 3 of the Top Chef contestants, and the winner from last year, Melissa, we worked together. It's a very small culinary world in San Francisco. So,
yeah. Do you still remember the credo?
I.
The Ritz-Carlton is the place
where
the genuine care and comfort of our guests is our highest mission.
Yeah,
I don't remember the rest.
I don't, but I did. Yeah, so after I left there, I went and worked for another restaurant, and all those years on my feet, I had actually hurt my foot at work. And right before that, people always ask how I got into chocolate, and the story is so silly, but I tell it because I think it's really funny. It's like I was walking down the street with my husband, and you know, I watch cooking shows all the time. They're my background music. Some people have, you know, music. For me, for the longest time, it was just like cooking shows were always on. Right. And I was like, one of these days, I think in my next life, I want to do something with chocolate. And I'm like, I don't know what it is. You know, I had worked with chocolate when I was younger, obviously as a pastry chef, but not like anything like what we do now. And he bought me some amazing books. He's got me, you know, all the great books, you know. And for Christmas, and I read through them, and then I took the École Chocolat program, which is what everyone does. And because I started searching the internet, I'm like, how does one even learn chocolate? You know, unless you're in as a pastry chef or in a hotel doing it. And I was like, how on earth is anyone going to learn any kind of cooking online? That makes no sense to me. I'm used to the French chef over my shoulder yelling at me to do it again and do it right, you know.
Yeah.
But it was an amazing program. It was really great. I think people ask all the time, you know, like, is how do you get into it? And I think it provides a really good basis for understanding chocolate. I mean, it's a really good starting off point, I think.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like, I probably would have said that 2 years ago. I may have said it out loud. Hopefully not to them. Hopefully they didn't hear what I said. But you know, how can you teach culinary online? How can you? And I think after the last year, where all I've done pretty much is teach people how to do things online. You know, you have to change the process, right? Yeah. And the onus becomes a little more on the student to learn.
Yeah.
Right.
And it was very much in the hands of the student for that class. And you know, when you break it down, really, chocolate's all about like physics and chemistry and understanding those a little bit. I'm not a science nerd by any far stretch. That's not true. Maybe a little bit, but it's to understand chocolate. I think understanding some of those principles really help. And then if you get to throw into some of the creative stuff later on, once you understand the mechanics, because we know chocolate is always in charge.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a different world though too, right? I mean, I think we're judged rightly or wrongly, and there's been a lot of talk on this program in the last month about this, but that what your Instagram profile looks like is sort of how you're judged, and I'm not 100% convinced that that's the best way to judge a chocolatier.
I 100% agree. I dabble in social media. I'm not that great at it. You know, I'm a man of a certain age. So although I understand this, also, you know, when you're running your own business, doing that as another thing, it's just another thing to do. And if it doesn't come naturally, then that's not my first priority. My first priority is, you know, making really good products that people want to enjoy. And they may not photograph as great as some people's do, but they sure do taste good and they look great.
Yeah, full disclosure, I removed myself from Facebook, in the middle of the election.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it anymore. I give up. I'm not friends with people that I like.
Yeah.
I like people that I don't like. This is a disaster. And I kind of got sucked into Facebook. So I removed myself from Facebook and then sort of threw myself into Instagram. Right. But there's that same problem there where you're talking about, like, part of the food thing is like, what does it taste like? Right?
Well, that's
Like,
the thing, right? I mean, it has to be beautiful, obviously, and I get that. And presentation is everything, right? But it's not everything. It's taste and balance. And trust me, there's a lot of, not a lot, but there are some chocolatiers that I've experienced, and I see their product. I'm like, wow, that's beautiful. It's amazing. And then you taste it, and you're like, well, you got the painting down.
yeah, it's a hard. It's a hard. I was. Who was here? Somebody was here, and we were talking about, like, traditional methods for decorating your chocolate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, fork lines on an enrobed or a dip piece, and like a beautiful piece of nut on the top of a piece.
Right.
And well, how important, in my perception, that still really is. And that doesn't diminish, the Chris Harveys of the world. It doesn't diminish
Right.
the Kate Weisers of the world. I'm not speaking ill of anybody by saying that. But I think there's a place for us to, we've gone so far down that, like, color and shine conversation.
I agree. Yeah.
That it's hard to come back.
Yeah. When I started, there was, especially being in San Francisco, you've got the Michael Ricutis, and then you have Chris Elbow, who has a store here.
Right.
And he had painted pieces, and I was like, wow, those are beautiful. Not really my thing, but they're beautiful, and I was more like, let's do old school and, see how it is. And then I started playing around with cocoa butter and color. And I realized that, some people are like, wow, who've never really seen them. Remember the first time we were doing events and people are like, are those real? Are they plastic? Are they more? I'm like, no, they're delicious and they're beautiful, and they can be both. But then you have a beautiful, like, perfectly enrobed piece of ganache, whatever the flavor is, with, a little wave on it or something.
Right.
And I'm like, I think they're both equally beautiful. I think they're different, but they're both equally beautiful.
Yeah, and this whole conversation is probably kind of hypocritical of me, because my most popular YouTube video is me using colored cocoa butter, and me me doing other stuff in the kitchen, like, it's like 2 views, you and me and, like, my wife, right? Like,
Right.
and my assistant. So we get like 5.
Right.
But if I use colored cocoa butter, I get 14,000, right? I mean,
And it's so popular. When I started doing it, and I always call, like, the baby chocolatier level in the Bay Area, I was doing events and, like, chocolate salons and things like that, and no one else was doing it at that level, the lower level. And I started playing, so we kind of stood out at that point because no one else was doing it, and now it seems like everyone does it, and it's great. I mean, everyone has their interpretation, right? Like, everyone's got their.
Okay, so you have a foot injury. We'll get back to, like, we digressed. I didn't warn, like, usually we do a pre-interview and I warn people that, like, who knows where this conversation is going to go, and, like, my ADD will, like, take
I'm
over.
with you. That's why we've dueling ADDs. Yeah.
So so here's the deal. We got like 38 more minutes. So we got to get through the story in the next 38 minutes. And then I got like 2 questions I got to ask.
All right.
But, okay, so you're walking down the street, your husband
books,
buys you a bunch of books, and you're like, I want to do chocolate.
I read the books cover to cover. I still read them all the time. Everyone knows Grueling and all these amazing, he's been on here. It was great. All these amazing books. I did a lot of research. And then I had this foot surgery that I had to, because my foot got messed up. And what does one do for a year off work? It turned out the surgery was pretty bad. I thought I was going back to work after 12 weeks. Ended up being a year. Well, you can sit on a stool and you can dip chocolate is what you can do. And so I did that for a long time and worked on things like a salted caramel recipe. Like, everybody's got one. Every chocolatier's got one. I'm like, was my favorite thing that I had at a few different chocolatiers. So that was the first thing I did. And I'm like, I'm going to make it mine the way I like it. And it's still continues to be one of our best sellers. It's just,
right.
I mean, it's that thing, except for the people that hate salty sweet, but I don't understand them either. So,
That's how I feel about people that don't like ice cream. Like,
I don't understand.
There's got to be something wrong with you.
Cold and creamy and delicious. So yeah, I did that, and then it came time to go back to work, and it was, do I go back to fine dining and working in that with wine and service and all that, or do I followed this dream that I didn't know I had, is the quote that I came up with, because I got into that. I had no idea. I didn't know I had a passion for doing chocolate like this, and turned out I had a knack for it. And it's like anything else in cooking, you have to do it a million times. So He's like, you know what? I'm going to give this a go. My husband was super supportive. He's like, do it and make us $1 million. Like, well, that's not going to happen, but it's not right.
Other people have. You still could.
Some people have. Yeah, it's a long process.
Hey, Michael, I'm going to interrupt you because Ecole Chocolat just hopped on, and you're done like plugging them and about how great they were.
Right,
but I wanted them to make sure that they knew that you already told them. You told the world that without Ecole Chocolat, you would not be Michael's Chocolates.
That's absolutely true. I hope their enrollment goes up by one, maybe. So yeah, and I started kind of looking around and doing a lot more research into other, chocolatiers and such, and then did a program with Ecole Chocolat up in Vancouver.
When is this? Like what year? When are we talking? Like 6-7 years ago?
This is 15 or
Okay.
16 is when I took that class, and then started working on stuff, and then we officially launched Michael's Chocolates in 2017. That was the year everything changed for us. I had taken some classes, and I went and took a class with Melissa Koppel, of course. That was, to me, like the ultimate, like working with Picasso of chocolates at the time.
Right.
No one else was doing classes like she was, and it was amazing. Changed entirely the way that I kind of looked at things. And that's the great thing about being a chef, right? Is that when you work with different chefs, you get different perspectives. Chocolate doesn't afford you that same opportunity. You can't go do stages like, it doesn't feel like you can with chefs in restaurants, but.
Yeah, because there's no desire to like work you like a dog for a week and then send you away because you'll just steal everything.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And no one wants to do that. And I understand it. And it's, it's different than the restaurant experience that I had worked. So I did all that. And then 2017 was pivotal for us just because in June of 17, my husband was like, you need to start doing some marketing for us. You got to get our name out there. And he's like, enter contests or whatever to get things. And I've always been kind of dubious about contests and whatever, but we submitted something to the Good Food Awards, and which is, for those that don't know, they're actually based in San Francisco, but it's an amazing organization that kind of highlights good food, like everything is sourced responsibly and locally when possible and things. And my products were, and so I submitted something and I won for the first time ever. And I told my husband, I'm like, you want me to pay someone to judge my product when that's all I do all day long is judge what I'm doing? And he's like, yeah. And it turned out pretty good. It put us on a little map.
But do you think that's part of like, I think I worked in restaurants too, right? And I worked in hotels, and we're constantly being judged, right? Like we're really only as good as that last plate, whether it's in my head, the last Thanksgiving dinner I put on the table, right?
Right. Yeah.
Or, or the last meal, the last dessert that we put down on that Thursday night at 11:13.
Right.
That person's judging us exactly the same way that customer at 5 o'clock was.
Exactly.
And the expectation is that both of those desserts are going to be equally as good, or that chocolate, whether it's the first piece out of the box or the last piece out of the box, is going to be good. I mean, we're constantly being judged.
I agree. And I think I have the benefit of having worked in the restaurants that I did. When you're working in Michelin-starred restaurants at that level, that expectation is everywhere, from front of the house to the pastry to the chef to everything. And so that's been instilled in me. So like that's why the OCD.
Right.
Really.
But you also referenced earlier having that French chef over your shoulder, like yelling at you.
Yeah.
Right. Which
a little terror gets you far in life.
I still wake up in the middle of the night sometimes, like terrified that my pastry cream is going to be lumpy. But
yeah.
And I quote, "My baby makes caca like that. I do not clean up after my baby. I do not clean up after you." And he walked off.
You should make a T-shirt. Yeah. A bumper sticker, maybe. I don't know.
He's the same guy that would always say, make it twice, make it nice or make it twice, and then he would walk away.
Yeah.
That was your way of telling you to like throw it out. Like, because he wouldn't tell you to throw it out.
Yeah, they would come by and pick it up, look at it, this is terrible, and then throw it in the garbage. You're like, but, okay.
No, he wasn't going to throw it in the garbage because that required effort on his part.
Oh, so
you had to throw it in the garbage.
Throw it in the garbage.
And you had to know you had to throw it in the garbage.
Right.
But anyway, so I mean, I think we're always being judged there, right? And I think, I no disrespect to anybody, but I think entering in that competition has to be hard because of that. It's like, what's the point? Everybody's judging me all the time. So what does it matter?
Yeah, it's really hard. And I was like, do I need that validation? And actually, professionally, I kind of did. You know, all my friends and family, my mom's like, your chocolate's the best. I'm like, Mom, you don't even eat chocolate. So like, but so getting validation from people you don't know. I mean, when you're selling things and people coming to buy it, but like these are judged by professionals. One of the judges was Alice Medrick, who has, you know, she has a long and storied past of chocolate in the Bay Area. And I always looked at her, thought of her like the Julia Child of chocolate, you know.
Right.
After we won that, the Bonbon, the Good Food Award, she actually came up to us at an event, and we were selling stuff, and I look up and she's standing right in front of me. And I had almost the same reaction that I had when I met Julia Child the first time, which was just like dumbfounded, like and she looked at the boxes and she looked up and big smile on her face. She's like, I know you. I'm like, no, you don't. Trust, you don't know me. And she goes, no, I know exactly. Well, I know this. And she pointed to the bonbon. She's like, I was one of the judges. And she's like, and this was my favorite. And I didn't scream. I almost did. I was like, you know, everything clenched up. I'm like, I can die now because, you know, that kind of validation. And that was what really propelled me forward after things. Is like, when you got something like that, for me, it was pretty cool. You know?
Right. I mean, and that's, I think it's interesting. I was thinking about a story like, so I went through this phase where I wanted to compete in showpiece for a while, right? Because I wanted to make the Coupe de Monde team. And anyway, whatever.
Right.
And so we did this competition, myself and a partner, and at the end of the day, we didn't do real well, right? Truth be told, like stuff happens, right? We didn't do real well.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, sculpture's rough.
And there were two of us, and I'll throw my partner. No, I mean, it wasn't my partner. I mean, we had a rough day, and but one of the judges that day was Awal Donner.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah.
One of the real deal people in my experience. That was one of the
books that I got when my.
Yeah, Awal Donner. You know, won the Coupe de Monde.
Yeah, that one.
The only American to ever win the Coupe. Okay, cool. We can handle that. So, and in passing, you know, Brian, your kitchen is really clean. And that same kind of like, it took everything in me not to like do the happy dance. Like,
right. Yeah.
Right then, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the hard part for people that aren't in the industry to completely understand, right? So, you know, it's that one comment from the right person that you totally respect.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That makes all the difference.
And that
right?
propels you, because you're like, wow, they actually liked what I did, so maybe I do. You know, there's all this self-doubt when you're starting of, you know, I think it tastes good. You know, it's when you've worked with chefs and you've worked with amazing people and your expectations are so high for yourself, and then you kind of
right, especially you're working. I mean, fundamentally, you work alone.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and having that chef over your shoulder to raise the bar is pretty easy. I mean, it's not easy. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I've worked with some people and you've worked with some people. I mean, you just threw around some names and it's like, woo.
Yeah.
Right. But like, when you know where you have to go, like, look, we're a 1-star Michelin restaurant. We're not losing that because of you.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You better get your stuff together.
Yeah.
Or like, get your stuff out of here.
Yeah.
Right. You know where you have to go. Like, the goal is 2 Michelin stars.
Right. Exactly. Only
so
better.
1 Michelin star is the bare minimum.
Yeah. There's no worse. There's only better.
So it's got to be harder. Well, in my own experience, it's harder when I'm working alone.
It is
without those things, without that person to help pull you into that next level.
My inner voice has a really strong French accent. I don't know if that helps or not, but it is this okay? I don't know. But
would you give this to the customer in the fashion that is on the table, or would you do something else with it?
I thank all my old chefs and chefs that I've worked with along the way for instilling that. I think it's great. And then, you know, even with doing wine for as long as I did, and that's another thing that's, you know, really kind of brought me to where I am with chocolate was, you know, I worked with, so when you asked if food was the thing, it's always been, apparently I have some oral fixation. Wine was the thing forever because it's intricate and it's interesting and there's a lot to study about it and know about it. And I found that fascinating.
But what it does say too, though, is that job, vocation, whatever, requires a pretty good tongue, right? So you've got to have, you have to understand flavor and you have to understand taste.
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And we were talking before a little bit about appearance versus, you know,
Right.
what does it look like versus what it tastes like?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
we've got to find a happy medium there.
Yeah.
You know,
And that's
wine relies almost exclusively on what does it taste like.
right. Yeah. I mean, it's
Unless you're good like Bunchu, and then you like, or Bonnie Doon, and then you
and then no
create
one can
labels.
pronounce the name of your wine. Yeah. No,
But
but
I mean, wine's changed a little bit where labels and superstores drive wine sales.
right.
But at the end of the day,
It's how does it taste? Yeah.
they all come in the same package.
Right. And yeah, and for me, I think it's given me a unique perspective when just how I formulate my bonbons and all the products that I do. I really think about flavor, texture, aroma, things of that nature. Like I think maybe I overanalyze it a bit sometimes, where my recipe development takes quite a bit of time because I'm like I know what something tastes like in my head before I make it, and or how I want it to taste. And then sometimes I'm surprised, and then other times I'm like, no, we're not there.
You know what's funny about that though too is that like I've always sort of thought that, and I always thought that was kind of like this crazy thought. Like, how do I know? How I don't really know what it's going to taste like. I'm kind of making that up. Like, oh
Right.
yeah, it tastes like I think it was going to taste like. And one of the things that I've learned doing this thing, this chocolatier thing, this
Mm-hmm.
chocolatier chat thing over the last year, is that no, I'm not alone in that. Like
Yeah.
that's something that a lot of people talk about. Like, no, I kind of knew what I wanted it to taste like. I knew how to get there. Like I knew that this was going to do this and this was going to do this, and
Right.
we were going to get to the place that I wanted to be. And I always thought I was crazy talking like that, but maybe not.
Yeah. No, am I still there? I look like something just changed.
You're still here. I can hear you.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, my iPad did something funny. Yeah, I think I do that a lot of, this is, and I like most chocolatiers where we have very fortunate friends that are like, here, taste this. What do you think? And then everyone's like, oh God, it's amazing. It's delicious. And it's like, well, it's not, but okay. I'm glad you like it, but it's a good starting off point for where I want to go. And
Right.
it's my, it's that internal voice, but that's always what's always pushing to make sure that it's, at least meets my standards of what I want to do. So,
All right. So I'm reining this back in. You win a Good Food Award.
yes.
You're
And
a burgeoning like chocolatier in the Bay Area.
right, which is a rough market, I tell you. There's a lot of
Wholesale, retail, internet. Like how are you doing
so
all that?
we decided to not open a brick and mortar initially because it's too expensive here. It's been crazy. So we did the chocolate circuit, I call it. It was chocolate events, chocolate salons, wine festivals, makers fairs. So we would get a table and show up at these things and sell our chocolate, and it was really fun. It was great for marketing because I got to talk to people face to face. Everything was great. It was growing. It's a lot of work, hauling your stuff all over the place. It's not easy, but I was really, really enjoying it. And then March of 2020 happened, and I was literally at an event. My husband was at a separate event, and they were both going to be our big events of March. It was going to be great, and this COVID nonsense happened, and that was the end. And I was literally like, that all happened, and I was like, well, what do I do now? My entire business model is, I had an online store, and we did a tiny bit of shipping, but I'm like, I don't, everything that we know, that I know about my business at this point was that. And at that point, we had decided that we wanted to open a brick and mortar. So we've been looking, and again, Bay Area, it's really, really expensive. And I'm like, well, we'll see what happens. So we had a plan going into 2020 before this happened. And then that immediately turned to survive, just get through the year. See if we can get through this pandemic without losing our
4 weeks. 4 weeks, it'll all be.
only 4
We'll
weeks,
flatten
right.
the curve in 4 weeks. All will be well.
Absolutely. So flat. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Just go home. Go home for a couple of weeks, chill, and we'll be back.
It's
It'll
fine.
be good.
Yeah. So flattened and made it through, and got a couple of gigs with some big corporate things that kept us afloat. Christmas was good. And I've been, at this point, my production space I actually share with another chocolatier. that does a completely different thing than me, but they had built out their own kitchen and it was great. So I didn't have to worry about that. And then earlier this year, made it through, Valentine's Day and Easter, and just happened upon a space that was for sale. And it was a chocolatier who had a whole kitchen built out, had a bunch of equipment that I don't have, and some I do have, and the opportunity to move in there. So we're currently negotiating a lease with the landlord. I'm hoping to sign next week, and we should open our brick and mortar probably September, by the time we get things put together and all that. So I'm super excited.
Can you tell us where it is?
It's in Oakland. It's on Grand Avenue. There was another chocolatier there. He's retiring. His name was Michael also, which was one thing that kept me from actually pursuing stores in that area, because he was a Michael and it's in the name of his business, and I'm Michael's Chocolates. And so now it'll be transitioning from one Michael to the other, but I could not be more excited. And I could teach classes. I used to teach a lot of wine classes, so bringing the wine and the chocolate together will be kind of fun in there, and I'm super excited.
And it's unusual. You're doing chocolate in Oakland, and it doesn't have
Yes,
THC in it.
yes.
So that makes you distinctive
And
in
it's
Oakland.
hysterical when that whole thing started happening. That was one of the problems with finding space in the Bay Area. Is when THC became, pot was legal, all the kitchens disappeared. They bought up all the kitchens so all of us small makers didn't have kitchens to make anything in. And
well, the good news is they've all moved into their monster plants now with
huge, right?
And
I can't tell you how many phone calls and emails I got are like, hey, can you collaborate with us? And like, well, there's a problem. My husband works for the federal government. Not legal yet. So problem. So, and I don't partake. So it'd be a little bit difficult to do some recipe development without that. But those that do it, I know, are super successful, and there's a lot of money to be made there, and I'm glad they're making the money. But I'm going to say
there's some other challenges though too. I mean, I think that's it. From the outside, it does look pretty easy, and from the inside, it's definitely a lot harder of a business.
Yeah, there's a whole other. You can't put your money in a bank, which is weird.
Yeah, I'll tell you that story offline sometime. My first time in an office, when somebody came back from making a delivery, and the safe was already full.
Like a safe full of cash,
yeah, pretty much. And so they open the safe door and it's full. Well,
right.
Forget it. I'll tell everybody. So and they're like trying to figure out where to put. Like they're stacking the money. Like they're they're playing Tetris.
Right.
With stacks of 20s.
Yeah, that's a rough life to have. So yeah, this is finally happening. This was supposed to happen in 20, as I mentioned, and so it's happening. I would say everything's supposed to happen when it's supposed to happen, and so it's great. I'm thrilled about it. That's now that all those events that I was doing before are coming back and finally coming open again, I think I'm going to be a little preoccupied with kind of getting this shop up and running, and very, very fortunate that there are others in the chocolatier world, the people that you've had conversations with. Hi, Jessica. I saw you just log on. That have been incredibly helpful. She just opened her store last November, December, and she's going through it. I'm like, good, you can teach me all of the mistakes so I don't make them. Different place, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a totally, I got into chocolate exclusively like 15 years ago, and which seems like last week. I'm getting old, man. I don't know when that happened.
It happens.
I need a haircut too. Like now that I can go get my haircut again, now that I can see the gray poking under my hat.
Yeah.
But the amount of knowledge, right? I mean, so I was sort of bad mouthing Instagram earlier. I'm now going to be positive about Instagram, and I think the people that I've met over the last year, right, sort of through this vehicle, or the relationships that have grown through this vehicle, right?
Yeah.
Or the things I've learned through Instagram and paying attention. If you kind of look at social media through that filter of it's not all real.
Right.
Right. Take what you need.
Right.
That's real, and leave the stuff that's not.
But some things are real. I've developed relationships with people that are not in this part of the country that I have had phone conversations with, and email and IG, conversations with people that are in the business or otherwise. that it's still kind of amazing to me. Like we can, create these friendships and never have met like in person.
Yeah, I mean, though funny story about that. Like, so there's a really well-known pastry chef in Buffalo, and we've been on panels together where we've been interviewed separately for like a magazine article, right? Where it's like, I had a round table with these four chefs and this is what they had to say, but we weren't in the room together, right? And so, but we've talked on the phone a couple times, like we became Facebook friends. So like, I know what her husband looks like and I know about her kids. And I mean, this is pre-COVID. I'm in line in a movie theater, right? And I turn around and it's her husband. And I say something to my wife about, well, I'm going to go say hi. And she goes, you don't know him. I'm like, no, but I do. I know what he does for a living. I know where he works. Like, no, I'm not even friends with him. I'm friends with his wife, which is even weirder, right? Okay. And it's like, Chris looks at me and goes, don't talk to that man. Don't, just, Brian, go get his popcorn. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'll go get his popcorn.
But
yeah. But I mean, I think you're right. I mean, like I've developed some really great relationships with people. There's a couple of people that from this program specifically that like I called for advice the other day. Like I've never met him. We've never been in the room together.
Right. But it happens, it's the new world. Us older guys are like, hey, this can work out. I think it's great. And I'm thrilled that it's happening. And also with social media and stuff, you could reach people that would never have seen you before. I mean, like we were featured in a Forbes article in December that would have never, ever, ever heard of us if it wasn't for Instagram.
Oh yeah, I mean totally. I mean, I think that's it's evolving, right? And like I'm tired of hearing that. Like the new normal. Like the next person who says new normal to me, I'm punching in the throat. But but right, the way we develop business, the way we market business, the way we sell, the way we interact. I mean, our first actual in-person class is in the end of September with Valrhona. And we had a meeting today and I'm just like, I don't know the answer to that question anymore because I haven't had people here in a year, 15 months. Like you tell me what you want to do because I don't care.
I miss the in-person classes. I got to tell you, I love continuing education. I love continuing to learn from other chocolatiers and people that I really respect. And I've done quite a bit of online stuff over the last year. But man, there's nothing like being in person and experiencing it that way. It's a completely different ball of wax. But
yeah, I mean, I got to take a class in Mumbai in the last year, which was cool. Yeah. But I had to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, which kind of sucked. Yeah. But like we did a class a couple of weeks ago with, we did a class with Chris Harvey. We did a class with Gonzalo Jimenez, right? And, the Chris Harvey class had people that were just waking up in Australia, right? And one of them had people that were about to go to bed, in Norway.
Yeah. I took the Chris Harvey class. It was great. I've been a fan of Chris's for years, and so it was really a great opportunity to do that. And I love the format. I mean, it's a great format if we can't be in person,
Right. And that was too with Gonzalo here. We did a class in Spanish, and we were able to teach to people that like it wouldn't work here, right? Because there's not like my Spanish is muy malo, right? I mean.
Sí, claro que sí, yeah. It's
pequeño palabras, por favor.
But you can get people from all over the world. And,
right.
They have to get up early. Or
late. In this case, most of them were in the United States, but it was cool to be able to do that. And I think touch new people that we can't normally touch from Tomric. I mean, like, my job has changed in the last year. It's just different, It kind of goes back to normal on Monday when I got on the airplane for the first time. But
I did it last week and a half ago, and it was not as bad as you think. So
no, I'm okay. Anyway, hopefully
fully vaccinated.
The highest effective vaccine ever is what the article I read the other day. So I'm feeling good about that.
I'm okay with it. Yeah,
if you're not vaxxed, I'm on Team Vaxxer. You are, but like this is me like just spouting to the masses.
Right.
Go get vaccinated.
Everyone, it's your body, your choice. To steal a phrase, it's do what you're comfortable with, and that stuff like that. And I have relatives that don't believe in getting vaccinated. I'm like, that's cool. Just don't come over. We'll see when we're through all this stuff. But,
yeah. So anyway, so you were talking about flavor development and about
Yeah.
things that, you give it to your neighbor and your neighbor says, that's the greatest thing ever, Michael. You should make more of them.
Yeah.
What's the thing that like you've created that you were sure was a winner and people were like, I don't know about that. Are you sure?
Yeah, it's funny because I know this. You always ask this question, and I was kind of going over in my head of like, which didn't work or ones that people were asking for. I'm pretty conservative in the flavors that I make. They're pretty like when I'm creating something, I'm like, I'm going to do something that I know people are going to, something that I would buy. If I was at a chocolatier, I'd be like, I'm definitely going to get that. And I'm not the one who's going to pick what I would consider the weird whatever. Like I made a pistachio cardamom bonbon that was, and I had never really worked with cardamom in a sweet sense before.
Right.
And that one worked really well. I think different variations of that, of trying to get different spices, I think, or probably, like, for instance, I did a curried bonbon because I had tasted another one that I thought was amazing. And clearly I have not worked with curry very much because it was hideous. I made it and had to spit it out. I wouldn't even let anyone else try it. But
well, there's your winner then.
Right.
There's the winner. Was there coconut involved? Because there needs to be coconut involved.
There was coconut milk involved, yeah. But it was, and it in my head, it should have worked. And it was poor technique is what it was. Maybe I'll revisit that. Maybe that's my 2021. Once I get open and running with the store, we're going to have a special on curried bonbons or something. Who knows?
You do a whole curry line. You could have like a Madras curry, and then
exactly right, garam masala, and
you could do a whole thing.
I'll stick with the spirits. Those are my cocktail collections are much more fun, and those I understand. Those are flavors I know really well. So
yeah, it's fun. Like I think figuring drawing inspiration is always it's always hard, right? Like I try really hard to pull in flavors and things from outside of our normal world.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes it works, and sometimes it really just doesn't work.
And sometimes it does. And I think of how long I've been doing this, which is, if we launch in 17, I've been working with chocolate for, 6 years, but how adventurous am I in things? And I'm kind of like, once you get the basic good flavors, flavors that people really enjoy that are going to sell, get those down. And then maybe be a little more adventurous with some other things. And
so what is the number one flavor in the Michael's chocolate world?
Other than salted caramel, which is just kind of always there. That was my favorite forever, and then I got bored with it because I've made it 1,000 times. Right now, it's still probably our either a lemon burst or bourbon caramel pecan, which I think my favorite's the bourbon caramel pecan, because you can't beat the salty and then the kick of bourbon and the buttery caramel. I mean, it's nothing wrong with those flavors.
I just did a recipe, sort of on the back of a napkin, because we needed to cut something for a demo with kind of that concept with the Valrhona pecan praline.
Oh my God.
And milk chocolate,
yeah,
cream and butter, and a little bit of, and I put a little rum in mine, but
that's
it was
yeah, I do. Someone was what kind of salt? I always use Malden salt when I'm working, Malden salt or kosher salt, depending with the process. But I always finish with Malden salt.
Hey, what's the salt in that little round container with the lady with the umbrella? Because that's the one I use.
I don't know what that one's called. Yeah, it's delicious though, right?
Is it fancy?
I like Malden salt to finish stuff. I do salted almond bar with that on the back. I love the crunch. I love the flavor. It's kind of expensive to be mixing into stuff, but
yeah.
And bourbon, I go all over the place. For my bourbon caramel pecan, I actually use Maker's Mark. I tried to use a local or handmade bourbon, and I got it, and I spent $60 on this bottle, and I opened it and tasted it. I'm like, that doesn't taste like bourbon. That's really unfortunate. But I make this amazing Old Patrol rye whiskey bonbon, which is here in San Francisco. Small producer, relatively small, and they are amazing. Really, really good. We have a lot of good distillers around here, so. And yes, Tracy, it's Morton's. That was the.
Yeah, I know. I got it. The yellow boots and the.
Right. Don't want to push the things, but yeah.
It's probably Wegmans technically in my kitchen. It's because I'm too cheap to buy the brand name salt.
Right. Which coast are you on? That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
I keep that too. Go ahead.
Food, like so dinner tonight, where are you going to go? What's your go-to on food?
I'm all over the place. I'm a big guy. I like to eat. Sometimes I want something lighter, like a really nice piece of fish with just some like faro or something super simple. But my go-to is going to be like something richer. Like like when I go to a restaurant, I always try to like order things that I would never make at home. Like I don't make duck at home, but duck is one of my favorite things to do. Like, when I go to a restaurant, like I want to taste all the ducks everywhere. I had a pastry chef a million years ago that made a foie gras truffle. When you talk about weird things that shouldn't work, it was the most amazing thing ever, and I'm gonna make it mine.
It's a lot of fat. I mean, of course it works. It's like fat and solids.
But the flavor of the foie gras with a little bit of Grand Marnier and dark chocolate, and it took me like 5 of them before I decided whether I liked it or not. And then I was like, oh, my stomach, but those are amazing.
Well, that was like when Gonzo was here last week. He had this like whole like pine tree caramel. Yeah. He was using like this essential oil. And like the first time I tasted it, I was like, I don't know about that. And by like the third bite of the bar, because I'm still eating, because I don't stop.
Right. You're like, maybe.
Yeah. I'm like, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I kind of like this.
Fun stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, I'm all over the board. I mean, I'll do fast food, not very often, but like, but we have like In-N-Out, and like if you're going to do fast food, do like
there better be, all I got to say is I'm going to Oregon next week.
Okay.
And there better be like the one thing, like as ridiculous as it is, like the only food that like I've been really sad, because I've actually done a lot of cooking in the last year. Like I've been making my own like Indian food and like yokosoba noodles, and like I've been like doing stuff, is I miss In-N-Out burger.
Yeah.
I really want some fries animal style.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, time and a place for everything. And I think every once in a while, a good In-N-Out burger, double. Good stuff.
Big chocolate shake.
Yep. Really good.
But I think it's finding ways, like where you're talking about things that you want to do, like how do you integrate that? So whether it's that foie gras truffle, how do you integrate that into kind of what you're formulating back at, at the business, right?
Yeah.
If you figure out how to do In-N-Out burgers for me, you let me know.
Yeah, I'll have to go study them a little bit more. I'm not sure how to get that in my world, but
All right. So it's obviously Michael's Chocolates on Instagram.
Yeah.
And there's a website.
michaelschocolates.com.
Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Couldn't make it any harder if I tried, but yeah.
Can we order online?
We released our Pride collection. We've been doing the Celebrate Pride Month, being an LGBTQ plus owned business. My husband is, the reason I'm doing this at this point. So we started doing a Pride collection in 2017 was the first year we did it with the rainbow hearts. It's been super popular every year, and they're back again. So this year I got a little crazy and continued doing it.
It's probably a longer question than the 3 minutes we have left. But we were talking to somebody a couple of weeks ago who said that, that was kind of his marketing plan. Okay, this is a community that I belong to. This is a community I understand. This is a community that I'm going to market to.
Yeah.
And then it didn't work. I mean, is that part of,
for me,
was that part of your marketing plan initially? Or is that just kind of like, that's what we're going to do 1 month out of the year?
Yeah, basically 1 month out of the year. I'm just a chocolatier. The fact that I'm married to a man is just something else. That's doesn't really have much to do. I mean, the fact that we're going into Oakland, which is such an amazingly diverse area over there, I'm super excited, because I would say it's almost more diverse than San Francisco. And these people, the community there loves it, and I'm excited to be part of it.
That's because you can afford to live in Oakland. You can't.
I'm still living in San Francisco though, so maybe I have to move.
You need to move.
Yeah.
Save some money on rent.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Get a big yard for the dog. He'll love it.
All right, so this question. You know what's coming.
I do.
You guys are at the movie theater. I rephrased the question, though. It's no longer you're on your way home and you stop at the convenience store. It could be either. You tell me. So I could cut to the chase. Mass market candy item that you can't live without.
Right. Well, there's 2 answers to that. Driving home, stop at the 7-Eleven or whatever, the Piggly, whatever it's called. It is a Reese's peanut butter cups.
Do you get the 3-pack, or do you get the 3? Do you get the jumbo pack with like 3, or do you get the 2?
No, the little tiny ones.
Oh, okay.
A perfect chocolate to peanut butter ratio. If it's a movie theater, it is always popcorn and red vines.
Can you do Twizzlers? Or does it
Nah,
have to be red
it's
vines?
not the same. It's not the same. They're too sweet. Red vines have the perfect amount of just a little bit of sweet, but it's a sweet and salty thing that I go for. So I should have probably called my business that, but a lot of my stuff has a noticeable salty aspect to it because I love that salty sweet thing. So
All right. We started with it, so we're going to end with it. Like, we haven't seen each other in like 4 or 5 years. When are we going to see each other? Are you going to go to Northwest this year?
I
Maybe.
don't know that I'm going to be able to with the store opening and such.
Got it.
But I will definitely be at the Fancy Food Show.
All right.
You know,
I can't remember. Is fancy food still on my list?
It's
I don't remember what my lists are anymore.
It's
like
in January, and if the FCIA is still doing their normal thing, that's when
I'll probably being chair of an FCIA committee these days. I probably have to go to that.
Probably be there. Yeah, that'll be. We'll meet up and we'll take Carrie Beal out for drinks.
Hey, unrelated though, my last trip to San Francisco, Christopher Elbow took me for the best corned beef sandwich in San Francisco, and it's in a museum, like right across the street from the Moscone Center.
Oh, there, yeah, okay. It's I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, I know exactly where it's.
So we can go have lunch there one day.
I'm down with it. Yeah.
And hey, Chris and Elbow. What's funny is I'm talking about Elbow, and he joined, so I don't know if
His
he's
ears
stuck
are
around.
burning. Yeah.
But yeah, so we'll take Chris with us, and we'll all go for a corned beef sandwich.
We'll go get some corned beef sandwiches. That sounds good to me. Yeah.
They were awesome.
Yeah,
So
I've not been there for a corn. I know exactly the place you're talking about, and I've never been there for the corned beef sandwich. So something to look forward to.
Hey, Michael, this has been great. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate that.
And we'll, so when are you scheduled to open? Or when are you taking over?
We should be taking over in the next, probably like July, September at the latest. So.
Okay, and you're in Oakland? I'm sure I will be in the Bay Area at some point in the next 3 or 4 months.
It'll be all over social media. So you'll get lots of videos and pictures of what we're doing because I'm so excited about it. I can't stand it. So I may have it also. Yeah.
And I'll get the boys to talk you into getting a sell me.
Don't think it's not on my list. It's at the top of my list. We'll see if budget allows, but we'll see.
We'll let you sell some of that other junk that's in there, and you can get a sell me.
Exactly.
I don't even know what's in there. Me talking smack about other people's stuff.
Let me just say it's no sell me what's in there now. So this is sell me's been on my list for years. You know that. So
yeah. So my backdrop is the giant panner.
Oh, you could crawl in there.
I could actually nap. Like I thought, there's nights that I'm here late and I have to be back early. Then maybe I'll take a little nap. And I've been distracted the whole time, right? Because I'm watching this chocolate bar melt into the machine over here. So every time I've turned around was to see if it was like it's still doing its thing.
It's going, yeah. No, I tell you, those Sommelier products are just get me so excited. And everyone's like, everyone I know that has one says, spend the money. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, coming soon. So
cool. Well, there we just plugged my thing for the. Thank you. Thanks for plugging it for me.
Everybody works.
And
PerfectSystems.com and MichaelsChocolates.com.
And I'm at Brian Donaghy on Instagram. Though, like, I don't post any chocolate things. I post really weird, random stuff that has nothing to do with chocolate. And all these chocolatiers follow me, and they're like, "How come you don't post anything about chocolate?" I'm like, "Because I do that at work all day."
That's the other one. Yeah, that's the other one.
All right, Instagram's about to kick us off because we got an hour. And,
thanks so much.
But thanks so much, Michael. We'll talk soon. Okay.
Right. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.